Well, hello and welcome to episode 11 of our backyard garden here in the South Carolina upstate. It's a beautiful day, April 12th, 2024. Hope you were able to see the solar eclipse last week. That was exciting. We drove to Indiana to see it, and it was one of the most spectacular things I'd ever seen in my life. The sun's right back out again today. I can't show it because it's too bright, but it's a beautiful day. It's in the mid-60s. A little breezy, but very pleasant, and the flowers are doing great, and we're going to show those off here starting right now. So as we always start here on this hillside, we've got a couple of different types of bearded iris. Most of them are just the standard purple or bluish ones. We have some that are multicolored like this. Most of them are not, but they are doing very, very well, really kind of at their peak. We had some white ones that finished up officially last week. Those are the first ones in the lower part of the bed, and now they're done. I always try to show off back in the corner here this snapdragon that has grown up out of the concrete in the driveway, doing really well. It's huge, better than anything we've got in the regular dirt. Go figure. But that happens sometimes. That's the nature of gardening. Got these irises over here doing really, really well, putting out lots and lots of flowers. Really happy to see that. This is our early spring garden, just about finished. Knockout rose here. We had a deer problem over the winter. They ate some of these knockout roses almost down to the ground. This one lost about half of its foliage, but you'd never know it. It's come back very nicely here in the spring, and it's getting ready to start putting out some of its little yellow flowers before too long. We have hydrangeas here. These will give us big white flowers later in the summer. And then a lot of Asiatic lilies down through here. Another couple of months before they flower, but they're worth the wait. They're absolutely spectacular. For that matter, so are these. The digitalis, these are going to start blooming in another couple of weeks. And these have come back mostly from seed. They've done very, very well. Some pansies here, mostly Johnny jump-ups, the smaller type of pansies. These did not do well over the winter. The rabbits and deer ate them right down to the ground, but we've been spraying for deer now every week for the last couple of months, and they've come back nicely. And another digitalis here. We've got a variation of viburnum back here, kind of an unusual one that we bought a year or two ago. It has a lot of little tiny flowers that'll start to bloom in another few weeks, and then those turn into berries, little tiny blue-colored berries. They're not blueberries, but they are blue berries, and the birds tend to eat those up pretty quickly. We have the what's left of snapdragon from last year, not doing too well for some reason, but we've got plenty of others that are doing well. Most of the ones that down in this area have kind of given up the ghost, but we have a number of them in the front and elsewhere that are doing really well. Here we have another hydrangea, and growing up through that is this clematis, which is going to start to bloom pretty soon. And then back behind here we have a lilac. We put this in last year. It was supposed to bloom 3 times a year. We only got a very small crop of flowers in the fall, and that was it. We'll see now that it's established a little bit more. We'll see if it comes out again. Usually we're used to standard lilacs which bloom only in the spring, so we'll see if this is a little bit different. Now this ground cover yellow rose has done very well. It didn't do so well last year, but right now it looks great. It's covered with blooms. Should give us some nice yellow flowers. We've got clematis back here. Probably in another few weeks these will start to bloom. And then got a knockout rose here, nice red one. Big clematis growing up the side of this. It's got blooms. This is the clematis bud. Huge thing. And plenty of rosebuds. So we're going to be getting a lot of color over here very, very shortly, probably within the next week or two. And then Azaleas, not probably a week away, I would say, from being fully in bloom. They're getting really close. Some of them are already out, a lot of others that are getting right on the verge of coming out. And then a lot of daylilies down in here. It'll be another month or so before they start to bloom. Nice big digitalis here, getting close to blooming. You see some buds there. Another one in the back. These have done very, very well. Big hydrangea. I'm sorry, not hydrangea, but a viburnum. It kind of looks like a hydrangea, but this is one of the most prolific ones. The only one that we have in the backyard, but it has done extremely well. And each year, each one of those, the ones in the front and the back, have just gotten bigger and bigger and put out more and more flowers. We just love it. And our neighbors have a gigantic hydrangea over there, which is now about 12 feet tall. In fact, they have a couple of them, and those will give us a lot of color that we're able to see right over the fence. So that's always fun as we get later into the season. More daylilies through here. A stilbe doing really well. They won't flower for another couple of months. They're more of a midsummer type flower, but they give us nice flowers that look like fireworks. To be honest, it's the best description I can come up with. Lamb's ear, I always mention this one. Doesn't flower, but it's really cool. Nice little shade ground cover plant. More stilbe, more azaleas, and then some hostas down here at the tail end. We do have a wisteria in the back. I had kind of given up on this. I thought it was dead, but there is some life in it. I think the upper branches didn't do so well, but it's coming back. It's hard to kill a wisteria. They are pretty invasive, pretty aggressive, quite honestly. And depending on your situation, that may be a good thing, that may not be a good thing. We've got one here that has done very well. This is an ideal place in our garden for a wisteria. It's right at the end of the fence. It can spread out along the fence, but we can chop it back if we need to so that it doesn't get too invasive. It's got lots of buds on it. It's getting ready to open up probably in another couple of weeks, I would say. Something I've commented on many times around here. In this area, we find that the native wisteria, which you see everywhere, just like a weed, it's out on the trees and telephone poles and just all over the place here in the upstate. They bloom in late March through about the second week of April, so they're going to be finishing up probably in another week. But they, as soon as they're done, then ours start to bloom. So really, between the two types, we've got about 2 months of purple flowers, and it's one of my favorites, even though the plant itself is kind of a pain in the neck. Here was a part of the garden that we're still waiting to see what's going to happen exactly. The deer came through here over the winter and chewed several of our roses right down to the ground. So this one has come back reasonably well. This one is starting to come back, has some buds on it, but time will tell exactly what comes of that and how this is going to look. Now, behind all that, up on the fence, we've got more climbing roses. These prolific little tiny pink ones. You can see buds everywhere. There are hundreds of buds already in early April. So these are going to start to give us a phenomenal amount of color very shortly. We've got clematis in there, nice pale purple type of clematis. Daylilies, nice azalea here that's pretty close to full bloom. This one actually might be in full bloom. I would say more so than the others. And then behind that, more clematis. We've got two different types here. I believe that one's Nellie Moser. I can't tell you the name of that one. That's similar to the one that we saw over to the right. It was just sort of a pale purple. But this is one of my favorite parts of the garden because it looks like an old garden. It's like a cottage garden. You've got along the fence vines for climbing roses, clematis, and jasmine. And the jasmine will be in bloom probably in another month or so. We're already starting to see some buds there. Jasmine is a definite pain in the neck. You have to keep that chopped back or it'll become a big problem. Take over your garden in no time. Here, another interesting story. I've talked about this before, but the deer ate our gigantic knockout rose, biggest one that we have in the entire garden, about 8 feet tall. The deer ate about half of that. Well, we're getting all this growth that's come back new from the base, and it's already getting some flower buds on it. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses, how healthy it is and whatnot. I have a feeling it's not gonna miss out at all. They're very, very healthy, prolific plants. Been well bred to handle stress like that. Over here, we've got one of our biggest blooms of clematis already. Again, those pale purple colors, right where you want them, right up amongst the clematis, the climbing roses. Both of those climbing roses and the clematis, and the jasmine for that matter, have gotten up onto the top of the trellis this year. It's taken us about 3 or 4 years to achieve that. We've had it over on the other side, but not on this side until now. And then this big climbing rose here, just again covered with buds, little faint pink flowers that are going to be coming out in the thousands pretty soon. Now on this side, you really get a view of the purple clematis that are fully in bloom, and then the Nellie Mosers over here, and you can see the jasmine with the light green leaves. They're going to be putting out flowers. A lot of growth on these things. They really take off. We had to chop back a significant amount of them over here because they had really started to take over this part of the garden, and it can happen very quickly if you're not on top of it. As we continue over this way, got a couple climbing roses here on a trellis. This usually gives us a lot of really pretty red roses later in the year. We have a number of smaller things through here. We did have vinca and some marigolds, annuals that we put in down here last year. We're going to skip that this year and just see what happens with our perennials and things that reseed. Got some dianthus, got some veronica back in here. The veronica have come back. They'll probably start to bloom in another month or two. Big daisies here. Our camellia is about done. In fact, it is done. Well, now, yeah, as soon as I said that, I see one that, well, the bud just fell off. So, yeah, I would say this one is done. Usually this does not do well with heat. You can see some of the flowers down on the ground there. Beautiful red flowers. They usually start to bloom in mid to late February and then through March. Sometimes a little bit earlier, depending on the weather. And then from here, we have got an area that's going to be just awash with color very soon. It's going to be a lot of red, a lot of red from the roses, that is, and then clematis, jasmine. It's going to be amazing. So we've got about 4 different colors of clematis. They've got these sort of I'm going to say crimson colored ones, then white, the Nellie Mosers. We've got some purple ones, and they're going to be all through there. We've got some big buds that are getting ready to open up, so this is going to be a really exciting area very shortly. And now as I look, there's a tree that's grown up in the middle of all that. I got to get in there and chop that out. We've had a couple of trees that grew up in the middle of all this. It's hard to get back to the base once you get to this time of the year because there's so much going on, but you really want to try to knock those out before the roots start to take over, especially in a flower garden like this. Got a big butterfly bush here, variegated leaves, pretty bright purple flowers that'll start up later in the year. Over here, an area that has not traditionally done that well, we've got this ice plant, which didn't do so well last year. Looks like it's getting quite a bit of growth this year. This area is traditionally sort of underwatered. Some things do well here, some don't. We had a wisteria here, did not do too well last year when we put it in, but it does have some growth. It's not completely done, so we'll see what comes of that. And then we had a couple of knockout roses in this area. Deer ate them right down to the ground, so those are gone. But we have in their place big clematis, both up on the fence and on the ground. And then over here, another big clematis that's in bloom. And one back here that actually died. I don't know why. It was starting to come out, and then it just gave up the ghost. So that one appears to be finished. This one is still doing okay. So we have three really healthy clematis here on this fence. And then our weeping cherry had some flowers which finished up last week. Now the leaves are coming out. So nice, typical weeping type of tree. It's probably increased in size by about 50% since we got it 5 years ago. Got some irises back in here. And lots of clematis along the fence, multiple types, 3 or 4 different colors of clematis. And then we'll come over to here. This is our other big wisteria. Now we put this in about 4 years ago, maybe 5. I think it was in the spring of 2019. So yeah, about 5 years ago. And it's been chopped back, but it continues to just go all over the place. It has a tendency to get itself wrapped around some of the branches on the weeping cherry. Typical kind of parasitic situation. And you can see the, actually if you look closely, you can see wisteria blooms, or not blooms, but buds, well up into the tree. So it's not an ideal situation. That's something, once it's done blooming, we'll chop that back and try to keep the two separate as much as possible. But overall, the redeeming quality of these things are the flowers, and they are fantastic. So nothing says that you're living in the South more than wisteria, and maybe magnolias, but wisteria in particular. And they're easy to grow, and they're pretty prolific. Let's show off. I don't usually show off much of the pond, but this is a beautiful day. From the house at this time of the day, we're getting a lot of shimmering on the water. It's just a nice relaxing place, and the plants seem to like being near the water. We've got our canna in here. I'm not the biggest fan of canna. It didn't do that well last year. The plants themselves do pretty well. They have a lot of greenery, and they come up, but they didn't really flower all that much. So we really haven't put a whole lot of effort into these. We didn't really do much after the season was over. We didn't chop them back or anything. Just kind of let them grow naturally and see what happens. Now over here, on the other hand, we did clean this up for the spring just a couple of weeks ago. Lots of daylilies in here. We've got black-eyed Susans that'll bloom later in the year. Some irises, and then over on this side, kind of the same thing, daylilies and irises. And so this area will give us a lot of color, usually midsummer and into late summer. We do have a couple of these white irises. Now these are the only blooms that we've had down here so far this spring. They're doing very well. Probably won't last a whole lot longer. But this area looks so much better after we did the spring cleanup. It was just really sloppy. The leaves accumulate down here on the stones, and just looks like nobody lives here until we got it cleaned up. But right now it looks pretty good. As we come back up, go past our Nellie Mosers again, and we're going to come back up to the house and finish up. I don't talk about this side of the yard too much. It's not terribly exciting. We've got these little tea olives. They've already bloomed. For the most part, they're done, although we do have a few little flowers left. They have a little bit of a scent to them, nothing to write home about, but one of them has not done well. Can't figure out why. It won't die, but it won't do well. I never figured that out. I think it's just a bad plant because all the others have done pretty well for the most part. Then up here, we've got our 9 hostas along the side of the house. Got those cleaned up. They look a lot better. And then back in here, our bed close to the house. It's more of a summer bed, not really spring, but we are seeing, even in early April, we're seeing some real hints of what we're going to be getting later on. Veronica down here, and then this knockout rose starting to get our first flower, nice bright yellow one. Got a red one over here. We've got irises in the back that are starting to bloom. More roses, daylilies that'll bloom later on in the spring. Got some Asiatic lilies here. Got one calla lily that is already coming up. A little early for those. Those are typically a little bit later in the spring. And so we got about 6 or 7 different colors of those. I'll be curious to see how they come back, or if they come back. Got clematis. Lots of clematis over here, more of the Nellie Mosers. This is a lilac. It's come out with the leaves, so I don't know if it's even going to bloom. It bloomed last year and the year before that, but I'm not sure that it's going to. I don't see any buds on it at all. I don't know why it wouldn't. It gets a fair amount of shade, which lilacs usually want. So I'm not sure what's going on with that one. Now this lilac that we put in last year is similar to the one we have over on the other side of the garden. It's peaked already. It's kind of finishing up. We'll see if we get any more flowers out of that later in the spring, or later in the year, like we were supposed to. Big hosta over here, and then daylilies, and then out of nowhere, just from seed, we have this digitalis that's growing up right next to one of the daylilies. More clematis, climbing roses, some with big buds on them, so we're going to be getting some flowers there pretty soon. More daylilies, Asiatic lilies, gigantic climbing rose here, again with the little tiny pink flowers on it. You can see closely all the buds. There will be, when this goes forward, there will be hundreds of them, and by the end of the year there will be thousands. More Asiatic lilies here. Trying to spray these as much as we can, and keep the rabbits and deer away, because they will eat these right down to the ground. They love the taste of these. Got our one blueberry plant here. The leaves started to turn a while back. Hard to tell what it's going to do. I've said before, I'm kind of disappointed with this. It hasn't done that well. And then we'll have later in the spring, we'll have some tomatoes coming up from seed in this area, and hostas back in here, and that's about it. So again, exciting time, lots and lots of color right now, and there you can kind of see the shimmering of the sun on the water, which we get this time of the morning. Kind of cool. And hope it's sunny wherever you are, and until next time, happy gardening.